There are moments in life that split everything into before and after. Moments you don't see coming, until they hit you so hard. You forget how to breathe. This story is about one of those moments. About a woman who gave everything to her family, and what happened when they thought she had nothing left. If you've ever felt invisible in your own home, if you've ever been betrayed by the person who was supposed to protect you, then stay with me, because sometimes, the quiet ones are the ones who rise the highest. And when they do, it's unforgettable. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to their family stories. Tap the like button, and leave a comment if this story speaks to your heart. Now, at my daughter's graduation, my husband looked me in the eye and said he was leaving me. 10 minutes later, he was screaming, because I stood up. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Melissa Carter. I'm 42 years old, and I live in a quiet neighborhood in Virginia where the azaleas bloom too early and people still wave from their porches. I teach high school English. The kind of job where you know every student's heartbreak and favorite book. Even if you're the only one who notices. For the last 2 decades, I've lived my life the way I thought I was supposed to. I met Daniel when I was 22, he was charming. Confident, a little older, the kind of man who could walk into a room and know exactly where to stand. He made me feel like I mattered. Back then, that was enough. I had dreams once. Big ones. I used to stay up late writing short stories, reading poetry, daydreaming about publishing a novel. But dreams are quiet things. They don't scream when you lock them in a drawer. They just fade, and I let them. When Lily was born, everything else disappeared. She was soft and pink and loud in the best way. I held her and thought, this is it. This is where I'm needed. So I stayed. I sewed her dresses. I packed her lunches with handwritten notes. I missed promotions and lost friends. But I was there, always there. Daniel worked late, said the hours were necessary, said I was lucky to stay home. I believed him. Maybe I wanted to. Over time, things settled into routine. We talked about bills, grocery lists, Lily's orthodontist. We stopped talking about anything else. Still, I thought we were solid. We had a life, a daughter, history. You don't just throw that away, right? Graduation day was warm, not too hot, not too breezy, the kind of day you remember in flashes. Lily wore her cap a little crooked. Her robe was wrinkled. She looked like sunlight, and I cried when they called her name. She was my whole world. Standing up there, I never felt prouder. We had dinner reservations at a quiet restaurant near the school. I wore my blue dress. The one Lily once said made me look pretty but serious. I curled my hair. I even wore lipstick. Daniel barely looked at me. Lily was buzzing with joy. She sat between us, laughing, telling stories. I held her hand under the table. I wanted to freeze time. Then Daniel leaned over and whispered, "Can we talk outside for a sec?" I thought maybe he forgot something in the car. Maybe the parking meter ran out. I followed him without thinking. We stood near the back entrance, beside a row of flower pots and a flickering light. He didn't even wait for me to ask. "I'm moving out tonight," he said, just like that. "I've met someone I didn't want to ruin today. But, well, it's done now." My ears rang. I stared at his mouth moving and couldn't hear the rest. Something about feeling alive. Something about it being mutual. Eventually, I remember noticing a mustard stain on his shirt. And how his hands didn't shake. Mine did. "Daniel," I managed to say. But he was already turning to go back inside. "Let's not make a scene," he said. A scene. As if my life wasn't unraveling thread by thread. I didn't follow right away. I stood there, gripping the edge of a flower pot until my knuckles turned white. I don't know how long I stayed. Long enough to feel the first crack, not just in my heart, but somewhere deeper, somewhere colder. When I returned to the table, Lily was showing her cousins pictures from the ceremony. Daniel was back in his seat, smiling, sipping his drink, like nothing had happened. I sat down, smiled, took a breath, and I decided something. Right then, in that second, he might be leaving me, but I would not be the broken one. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was the silence. The way he laughed with his brother as I sat there, holding a secret he dropped on me like it meant nothing. The way his mother complimented the risotto while I was trying not to pass out from the weight of it all. And Lily, sweet Lily. Her face flushed with happiness. Still glowing from the ceremony. I watched her talk, laugh, chew, unaware that her world was about to split in two. I smiled. I nodded. I passed the breadbasket. My heart was breaking in real time. And no one could tell. I wanted to scream, to stand up and throw my glass across the table. But I didn't. I knew my daughter. She needed this moment untouched. I would not let his selfishness ruin her night. Not yet. Later that evening, after the last hug goodbye and the last family car had pulled out of the parking lot, we got into ours. Lily sat in the back, humming softly, scrolling through her phone, still dressed in her wrinkled gown. Daniel drove. I stared out the window. My fingers clenched in my lap. Did you two argue? Lily asked suddenly. You were both gone for a while. Daniel chuckled under his breath. Just grown-up stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. And I don't know what came over me. But I turned around, looked my daughter in the eyes, and said, we'll talk tomorrow. Her smile faltered. She nodded slowly, sensing the shift. She always did. That night, I lay in bed next to a man who had already left me. His back to me, like it had been for years. His breathing steady. He'd slept just fine. I, on the other hand, stared at the ceiling, counting every crack in the plaster. The next morning, he was gone. Not a note, not a suitcase missing, just gone. By noon, I found out where he went. He didn't even try to hide it. A friend from church called me. Said she saw him at brunch, holding hands with a woman who looked barely 30. I made tea, sat in the sunroom, and cried. But not the kind of tears you'd expect. Not wailing, not angry, just quiet drops sliding down my face. As if my body was grieving something before my mind could catch up. Then Lily came downstairs. She was barefoot, rubbing her eyes. Where's Dad? She asked. I opened my mouth and told her the truth. Plain, honest. He left. The silence that followed was louder than anything I could have said. She stared at me. Her bottom lip quivered. But she didn't cry. Not at first. He what? I explained. Gently, slowly. Her hands shook. Her face turned red. And then, she ran. I found her in her room. Curled up on her bed. She looked like she had at 6 years old. When she broke her favorite doll and thought it couldn't be fixed. But this wasn't a doll. This was her father. The days after blurred. He stopped responding to my calls. He started posting photos with her. Her name was Adrian. She wore red lipstick and liked captioning things like, New Beginnings, and, Authentic Love. I wanted to scream at her. At him. But I didn't. Instead, I started walking. Every evening, I'd walk down our street. Past the retired couple with the golden retriever. Past the row of mailboxes I once decorated for Christmas. Just me, the pavement, and my thoughts. One night, I passed the library. It was closed, but I could see the shelves through the glass. That's when I remembered something. A line I'd written when I was 20. Before Lily, before Daniel, before life rearranged me, I am made of quiet revolutions. It had said. That night, I opened my laptop. It had dust on it. I didn't even remember my password. But I sat there, and I wrote. Not for anyone else, just for me. The first thing I wrote was about a woman who stayed too long. Who gave too much. Who vanished into the life of the man she loved. And then, one day, she woke up, and remembered she had a voice. It wasn't good. It wasn't polished. But it was mine. I wrote the next night. And the one after that. Meanwhile, Daniel kept trying to get Lily on his side. He texted her things like, your mom gave up on us years ago. And, I couldn't live like that anymore. Don't you want me to be happy? She stopped showing me her phone after a while. I could see the confusion in her eyes. The anger. One evening, I found her crying in the laundry room. She looked up at me and said, was it my fault? I knelt down, took her face in my hands, and said, sweetheart, this has nothing to do with you. And everything to do with what your father chose to destroy. We cried together, wrapped in silence, wrapped in each other. And I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to fight him. I was going to outgrow him. Lily changed after that. She didn't slam doors or yell. Not like some kids might. She just quieted. The laughter that used to bubble up at breakfast faded into silence. Her eyes didn't meet mine as easily. And when her father called, she took the phone into her room. I didn't ask what they talked about. I knew Daniel. I knew how he twisted words until you doubted what you saw with your own eyes. He could make a lie sound like love if you gave him enough time. One evening, I overheard part of their conversation. She's always been cold, he said. You know that, sweetheart. She didn't support me. Not really. She was just there. Always tired. Always preoccupied. I tried. But that was enough. I didn't barge in. I didn't take the phone. I just walked outside and sat on the porch. My chest so tight I couldn't breathe right. When Lily came out, her eyes were wet, but she didn't say anything. She sat beside me, wrapped in her hoodie, and leaned her head on my shoulder. We sat like that until the sun went down. I wish I could tell you I handled it all with grace. That I was strong, composed, unshakable. The truth is, I broke in 1,000 quiet ways. In the shower, where no one could hear. In the middle of folding laundry. When a t-shirt he never came back for fell out of the basket. In the grocery store, standing in front of his favorite cereal before realizing I didn't need to buy it anymore. But something else was growing in me. Too. Not anger. Not even revenge. Clarity. One morning, I woke up before the sun. I brewed a pot of coffee. Sat at the kitchen table. And opened my laptop. I stared at a blank document for a long time. Then I started typing. It wasn't a story. Not yet. It was pieces. Fragments. A woman standing in the wreckage of a life she built for everyone but herself. A woman who used to dream of being heard. A woman who had been so quiet for so long. Even she forgot she had a voice. I wrote every day before school. 15 minutes. Sometimes 30. Sometimes longer. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. At work, I smiled when people asked how I was. I graded essays, gave feedback, played the role I always had. But inside, something had shifted. I was beginning to recognize myself again. Then, one afternoon, I got an email. Daniel's name sat there in the inbox. Bold and unread. I clicked. He was inviting Lily to a family dinner. Just the three of them. Him, Adrian, and our daughter. He said it was important, for bonding. He didn't ask me. Didn't check if it was okay. Just sent the invite like it was a birthday party. I showed it to Lily. She frowned. He wants me to call her mom. The words knocked the breath out of me. I don't want to go. She whispered. But he'll say I'm choosing sides. You're not. I said. You're choosing yourself. That's different. She nodded. But the ache didn't leave her face. That night, after she went to bed, I printed out the papers I'd been sitting on for weeks. Divorce documents. Every page. Every signature. Every line. I'd gone over them in silence. No drama. No threats. Just facts. I made an appointment with a lawyer the next morning. And for the first time in months, I slept through the night. Lily didn't end up going to that dinner. She told Daniel she had plans. He texted her a thumbs up. No call. No questions. Then he posted a photo of him and Adrian at a sushi place. Captioned, "New family, new joy." I stared at it for a long time. There was something almost comical about the way he tried to erase me. As if 20 years could be scrubbed out with a filter and a clever quote. That weekend, we hosted Lily's graduation party. It was just close family and friends. Nothing big. Streamers. A photo board. Cupcakes with her name on them. People brought cards and hugs and memories. Daniel showed up late, wearing a collared shirt I bought him 3 Christmases ago. He looked at me like I was the ghost. I offered him a drink. He declined. I saw how he moved around the room, trying to win smiles, charming his way back into the center. But something was different now. He didn't own the room anymore. And I wasn't shrinking in the corner. At one point, he leaned in and said, "I'm surprised you're holding it together." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "You think this is me holding it together?" He laughed awkwardly, but I wasn't joking. Later, after everyone had eaten and Lily was cutting her cake, I stood up and tapped my glass. Before we raise a toast. I said, I want to share something I've been working on. The room quieted. I pulled a folded sheet of paper from my purse. My hands didn't shake. And then, I began to read. I didn't read it like a performance. I didn't raise my voice or ask for attention. I just read it the way it had come to me, slowly. Plainly, like telling someone the weather after a storm. It starts with small things. I read, a forgotten thank you, a cold shoulder on a warm night, a silence that grows louder with each year. The room stayed quiet. I didn't look up. You don't notice it at first. You think, he's tired, it's work stress, things will get better, and they might. But one day, you wake up and realize, the person lying next to you doesn't see you anymore. Maybe he hasn't for a long time. I heard someone set down their fork. A chair creaked. He says you changed, that you stopped being fun, that you became a mother, a teacher, a caretaker, everything but the woman he married. And you wonder, when did that become a crime? Someone let out a quiet breath. I kept going. You sacrificed. Silently. You made holidays happen, paid bills with coupons, kept a warm home, gave your best years to everyone but yourself. You thought love meant staying, even when staying meant disappearing. I finally looked up. My eyes met Lily's first. Her mouth was slightly open. Her gaze fixed. She knew. Then I saw Daniel. His smile had fallen away. His jaw was tight. He sat still, eyes darting like he was waiting for a punchline that never came. I wasn't finished. But something strange happens when you're left behind. I continued. You stop apologizing. You start remembering who you were before you became someone's shadow. And you realize, being left was never the tragedy. The tragedy was how long you stayed. Thinking it was love. A fork dropped. Someone gasped. It didn't matter. I folded the paper and placed it gently on the table. Then I smiled. I filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. I said, I've changed the locks. The joint account is no longer joint. I'll be keeping the house, for my daughter. And for myself. I just wanted you all to hear it from me. Daniel's face turned a shade I'd never seen before. He stood up abruptly, knocking his chair into the wall. You've lost your mind. He spat. I stayed seated. No, I said calmly. I just stopped losing myself. He pointed at me, hands shaking. You blindsided me. In front of everyone? This is disgusting. Melissa, this is manipulative. I tilted my head. Is it? He turned to the others. Do you all hear this? She's using Lily's party to make some kind of scene. A few people looked away. His sister stared at her plate. My best friend, Julia, folded her arms and raised one eyebrow. Daniel stepped toward me, towering, but I didn't move. You have no idea what you're doing. He growled. Adrian's a lawyer. You want to fight dirty? Fine. I looked at Lily. She was standing now, her face pale but steady. Dad, she said softly, please stop. He turned, surprised. Honey, she's poisoning you against me. Lily shook her head. No, I saw the messages. I've been reading everything you sent me. All the things you blamed her for. His eyes widened. That's not. She gave up everything for us. Lily said. Her voice trembled, but her hands were fists at her sides. She never made it about her. Not once. And you couldn't wait until the night of my graduation to make it about you. Daniel's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came. I don't want to talk to you right now, she said. He looked around the room. No one met his gaze. You're all insane, he muttered, grabbing his coat off the back of a chair. She'll twist everything. You'll see. He walked out without another word. The door closed harder than it needed to. The silence that followed was deafening. No one moved. Then Julia raised her glass. To Melissa, she said quietly, for remembering who she is. There were murmurs of agreement. A few glasses clinked. I sat down. Lily came over and wrapped her arms around me from behind. Mom, she whispered, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. I let myself cry then. Not the quiet tears I'd trained myself to hide. Real ones. Messy. Relieving. She didn't let go. We cleaned up slowly after everyone left. I washed dishes while she folded the tablecloths. No music. Just the sound of two women finding their rhythm again. Later, as I folded my speech and tucked it into my desk drawer, I paused. I wasn't done writing. Not even close. The morning after the party. The air felt different. The house was still, no arguing voices. No tension creeping around the edges of every room. Just sunlight spilling through the kitchen window and the sound of birds outside. Carrying on as if nothing had changed. But everything had. Lily came down the stairs in her pajamas. Hair a mess. Face bare. She gave me a look, soft, cautious, and I offered her a warm mug of tea before she even asked. We sat in silence at the table for a few minutes. She didn't look at her phone. I didn't ask her to talk. We just sat, two women finally breathing the same air. Then she said, "I don't think I ever really saw it before. How lonely you must have been." I shook my head gently. "You don't have to carry that." "I know," she said, "but I see it now." I reached across the table. Squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. That afternoon, I went into town to return a library book. The librarian, a woman named Janice who'd once taught my creative writing class in high school, gave me a long look. "I heard about the party," she said, scanning the book. "Heard you said your piece." I smiled, a little embarrassed. "Word travels fast." "Good," she said. "Some truths deserve to travel." Before I left, she slipped a flyer into my hand. A writing workshop. Thursday evenings. Open submissions. Community pieces welcome. "Think about it," she said. I tucked it into my purse. At home, I sat down with my laptop and opened a blank document. The same story I'd been working on, about the woman who stayed too long, had started to grow. It had structure now, a rhythm, a pulse. I gave the main character a name. Gave her a daughter, a husband with cold eyes and clever excuses. I wrote in stolen hours. After school, before dinner, late at night, long after Lily had gone to bed. And little by little, I felt myself coming back. I didn't tell anyone, not even Lily, when I submitted a piece from it to a local women's magazine. I expected nothing. I wasn't chasing success. I just wanted the words out of me. 2 weeks later, an email popped up. They wanted to publish it. Not just online, but in print. The subject line read, "We loved your voice." I cried when I read that. Not loud, not messy, just a soft, stunned kind of weeping, because I'd spent so long believing no one wanted to hear my voice. That it was too soft. Too ordinary, too late. I printed the article when it came out. Framed it, hung it in my hallway. Between Lily's kindergarten painting and a faded family photo that I finally took down. I replaced that photo with one of just the two of us, me and Lily. At the graduation party, laughing. The moment right before I stood up and changed everything. Daniel tried to call a few times after that night. Left a voicemail saying he was willing to forgive me for how I embarrassed him. Forgive me. I didn't respond. Then the legal papers arrived from his lawyer. His tone shifted. Suddenly, he was angry, said I was milking the drama and making him look bad. He offered to settle quietly if I agreed to sell the house. I declined. I'd lived in silence long enough. Quiet didn't mean small, and this house wasn't just brick and furniture. It was the place I built a life. The place I lost myself. And found myself again. The community started noticing, too. Women I barely knew would stop me in the grocery store. Ask if I was the one who wrote that piece. One said, "I left after 30 years. Reading your story helped me feel like I wasn't crazy." Another woman, teary-eyed, whispered, "I haven't left yet, but I'm thinking about it." And still, I kept writing. Lily started college classes online that fall. She stayed home for a while. Said she wasn't ready to leave me yet. I didn't push her. We cooked dinner together most nights. Talked more than we ever had before. One evening, as we were cleaning up, she said, "You know, I think I want to write too." I turned to her, surprised. "You do?" She nodded. "I've been reading your work. It's honest. And I think I've got some stuff I need to say." I felt tears prick behind my eyes. Not from pain this time, but from pride. "You've always had a voice, sweetheart," I told her. "Now you just have to trust it." That night, we sat side by side at the dining table. 2 laptops, 2 mugs of tea. 2 women who had walked through fire, and came out writing. I don't know what tomorrow holds. There's still healing to do. There are still nights when the silence gets loud again. But I no longer fill it with doubt. I fill it with words. Fall arrived gently that year. The air thinned, the light shifted, and the trees began to shed what they no longer needed. It felt fitting. I began walking different routes in the mornings. Not just around the neighborhood but out past the edge of town. Near the trails behind the community center. I liked the quiet there. The way the leaves crunched under my shoes. I found peace in movement. In the steadiness of one foot in front of the other. Sometimes I brought a notebook. Sometimes I didn't. But the words came all the same. The writing class Janice told me about met every Thursday night in a modest room at the back of the library. The first time I went, I sat near the door, unsure if I'd stay. Most of the women were older than me. A few were younger. Some wrote poetry, others journaled. One woman named Carol wrote murder mysteries that made everyone laugh out loud. We read to each other in soft voices. We cried over strangers' paragraphs. We clapped for courage, not polish. And slowly, week by week, I stopped writing in hiding. By December, I had a small group of women who came over every other Sunday. We called it the Second Chapter Club. Lily helped design the name. She even made us a little logo. Daniel, meanwhile, had begun showing cracks. I heard through a mutual friend that Adrian had moved out. Something about things not being as exciting as she'd hoped. He started sending more emails, thinly veiled attempts at sympathy, claiming he missed Lily, missed the way things used to be. I made mistakes, he wrote, but you made it worse. I didn't answer. Lily did. Once. She told him she was proud of me. That she saw what real love looked like now. That sometimes, leaving wasn't the betrayal, staying silent was. He stopped writing after that. My second story was published in a bigger magazine. Then another. The articles started circling around online. Pieces about women reclaiming their lives. About the hidden costs of long marriages. About what happens when we stop saying sorry for taking up space. One morning, while making breakfast, I opened my inbox and saw something from a national editor. They wanted to talk about a book. I sat down right there on the kitchen floor, holding my coffee, blinking at the screen like it had been sent by mistake. But it wasn't. They'd read everything. They said my voice was strong, unapologetic, needed. And just like that, the dream I'd buried under years of grocery lists and dental appointments began to rise again. Lily was the first person I told. She threw her arms around me, nearly knocking over the plate of toast. Mom, she said, her eyes shining. You're doing it. You're really doing it. I think I am, I whispered. And it felt real, not because someone else said so, but because I finally believed I deserved it. There were still hard days. Days when I'd walk past a shirt Daniel left behind and feel my chest tighten. Days when I'd hear an old song in the grocery store and feel the familiar sting. But the grief no longer swallowed me whole. It moved through me and kept going. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror and really looked at myself. The lines around my eyes. The soft crease between my brows. The silver threads working their way through my hair. I didn't look like I did at 22. I didn't want to. I looked like a woman who'd lived. Who'd loved. Lost. Rebuilt. Who had more to say. Later that night, Lily came into my room with a stack of pages. What's this? I asked. My first story, she said, cheeks red. I wrote it for my lit class. But, I wrote it for you. Too. I read every word slowly. Carefully. It was raw and tender and full of truth. A story about a girl watching her mother rise again. About forgiveness. About strength. When I finished, I looked up at her. You have it, I said, voice thick. You really do. She smiled. And for the first time in months, she looked young again. In the quiet that followed, I thought about all the women I knew who had stories locked inside them. Who had been told to wait. To be patient. To put everyone else first. And I thought about how dangerous it is to let yourself disappear. Not all losses are tragedies. Some are invitations. That year, for the first time in a long time, I sent out holiday cards. Not with a family photo. Just a quote. It read, Sometimes, the best part of the story begins when the old one ends. Spring came earlier than expected that year. The dogwoods bloomed before Easter, and the wind softened. Our house smelled like lavender and lemon. Lily had taken to opening the windows while we worked, letting the light in as we typed away at opposite ends of the dining table. We had a rhythm now. It wasn't loud or flashy, but it was ours. Tea at 9, walks at dusk, words between us that didn't have to explain everything. A kind of peace that had been missing for so long. I almost forgot it could exist. The book offer turned into a contract. The contract turned into deadlines. And those deadlines turned into long, tender hours of writing through every part of my life I'd once been too afraid to speak about. I didn't write for revenge. I didn't write to shame Daniel. Or to rewrite history. I wrote to understand. To stand back and finally see the full picture, not just what had been taken from me, but what I'd given away, and what I was still capable of building. I wrote about the long years, about the silences, and the invisible labor, about the day I stopped asking for someone else to see me, and started seeing myself. Each chapter felt like breathing again after holding it in too long. The book would be called, The Day I Was Left, and Found Myself. Lily came up with the title. You should be proud of what happened, she said, not ashamed of how it started. It launched with a quiet buzz. No fanfare, no banners, just a few early readers who shared it online. Then a few more. A blog picked it up. Then a podcast. Then a radio host called it the soft roar of a woman waking up. The emails began pouring in. Women from Iowa, Florida, Maine, even overseas, sending me stories that mirrored mine in ways I never imagined. Long marriages with short apologies. Daughters who watched their mothers disappear. Dreams traded for stability that never stayed. I read your book in one sitting. One woman wrote. And then I called my lawyer. Another said. You gave me the words I didn't know I'd been trying to say for 20 years. I printed every message. Kept them in a box in my closet. Not because I needed validation, but because I needed to remember that telling the truth matters. Even the soft, ordinary truths. Daniel never said a word about the book. Not directly. He sent one message, months after it came out. Guess you got what you wanted. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the screen and went back to writing. Lily got into her first choice university. She cried when the email came through. I held her, thinking about the little girl who once clutched my hand on her first day of school and whispered, "Don't let go yet." Now she was ready to fly. We packed her things that August. Folded sheets, labeled boxes, talked about meal plans and campus life. And when I hugged her goodbye in front of her dorm, I didn't cry right away. I waited until the drive home. Until I was alone on that long stretch of highway. Windows down, music low. And then I let it come. Not just the ache of missing her, but the pride, too. The awe of watching someone you love become whole right in front of you. When I got home, the house felt quiet again. But not empty. I walked into my study, lit a candle, and sat at the desk that had once been just a dining table. I opened a new document. Typed the first line of a new story. It wasn't about pain this time. It was about starting over. About the kind of joy that doesn't shout, but hums steady in your chest. That night, I made myself a glass of wine and stood on the back porch. The stars were out, the kind of night sky you don't always remember to look up at. I closed my eyes and thought. I didn't lose my husband that day. I didn't lose my family. I lost the weight that kept me from flying. And I'm still flying. I always will be.